Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is going to be quite an interesting one if you are a snow lover in the south. And that's because yesterday in my video I talked about the potential for a band of snow to push up from the channel and bring, like I said, a spell of snow across southern parts of England. However, I said that probably wasn't very likely. I did mention there was a case to be made that the models were underestimating the development of the eastern side of the system. But I did say overall I thought that wouldn't happen. However, that has actually changed now. We've had a pretty significant model failure, and we are looking likely to see a spell of snow across southern England during the late morning into the afternoon and continuing into the evening, and in places this may actually be significant. Now, I made this graphic here, but even this graphic may be slightly underdoing the extent and intensity of the snow, and I'll go through that in detail shortly. But just a brief overview is we're now expecting parts of southern Ireland, southern England, southern Wales and southern England to see at least some sort of falling snow. Now, it's not going to be everywhere in white that sees this, but quite a few places in this area are likely to see falling snow, though at times it may transition between rain and sleet. But I mean, falling snow is better than nothing, right? And then in the lighter blue, you've got patchy 1 to 5 centimetre accumulation. So this is across parts of southern Ireland, the southwest, central southern England, and the southeast into parts of southern England there. Now remember, patchy is here for a reason. Not everyone here is going to see accumulations. Not everyone here is going to see 5 centimetres. It's going to be quite variable to do with terrain, the local wind direction, and the local temperature. But this general region is expected to see some form of accumulations. Now, in the dark blue area, we're looking at a region seeing 5 centimetres or more of snow. Now, this will be significant, but potentially we could be seeing a fairly large amount, maybe as much as 10 centimetres. I'm not too sure on that. But also, other regions potentially could see close to 5 centimetres in this risk area as well. I thought I'd just show you what was expected to happen, and then we can compare what's expected to happen with what's actually going to happen. So this is the UKV model, generally a pretty reliable model, especially at this range. And you can see this is 7 o'clock, showing a band of rain across parts of the Channel, down into the Atlantic, pushing into northern France now. And then through the day, it bumps up into the southwest, brings patchy periods of rain and snow. And by around 5 o'clock, we're looking at periods of snow focused across high ground there, leading to some accumulations, maybe 5-10 centimetres over the high ground of the southwest, a couple of centimetres across the high ground of southern England. But number one, notice the kind of mixed precipitation type. There's quite a lot of rain there, but also it's not really that significant. We do get patchy periods of rain and snow, which occasionally settle. However, if you compare the 7 o'clock, what it said for 7 o'clock, which is basically now, you've got our rain band there. Let's look at the actual radar. Can you see the difference? If you can't, I'll show you right now. This is our band of snow, which is actually basically touching the tip of southern Ireland now. Here, it's probably, I don't know, maybe that's 50, 100 miles further south. If we look, sorry, go back to 7. If we look at the band of snow further east, you can see it's just about reaching the southwest, but it's pushing fairly decently into the Channel and also across parts of France. If you look what the model had, nothing. So this snow band is currently looking around 50 to 100 miles further south. Now, that doesn't mean that we extrapolate everything and push this further north, because we're still expecting the block, the high pressure, which I've got, where's the chart gone? Okay, so we're still expecting the high pressure in place. We've got our ridge to help push this to the south. So it's unlikely you're going to see a massive shift north, but these scenarios which people were saying seemed unlikely, including me, by the way, which was the kind of the GFS showing kind of 1 to 5 centimetres of snow across the south, I think that's now looking fairly likely. And you can see we've got that slightly stronger eastern half of the low model there. Another thing to consider is that this is the water vapour satellite imagery. It can show you a pretty good indication of the general pattern. This is what's interesting the most, which is that the area of low pressure seems a lot stronger than what the models expected. And you can kind of see that because we've got fairly strong rotation, quick spinning there, lots of kind of very fast wind flow, and also this quite noticeable bend indicates a sharpening of the trough at the mid-levels. So we're probably a strengthening storm, or definitely a storm which is not weakening. And another interesting thing is that it's been moving quite significantly northeast, even when the other models didn't have that. So there's my cursor here. I don't know if you can see that on the screen recording, but I'm holding my mouse here. And what you can see is that the center of this kind of curve in the mid-level airflow, where we've got the boundary between the drier and the warmer air, so the trough, the disturbance at the mid-levels, has continued to move northeast. The models actually didn't really have that, and you can see they were expecting the center of the low to move due east, so no northerly component whatsoever. And I think, number one, it's stronger, and number two, it's got much more northerly component, which is why even now we can continue to see this band of heavy precipitation pushing up towards Ireland. And I mean, if you compare with what the models had, they were showing the band of precipitation wasn't going to even reach Ireland, and if it did, it would have been like 3-4 o'clock. So generally, I think we're looking at a much stronger low. Now that provides another benefit in the fact that the winds will be stronger, the pressure gradient will be stronger, it will be dragging in a much cooler air mass. So the UKV, I think, had upper air temperatures of kind of -5, -6 degrees ahead of the low pressure system. Expect this boundary to probably be a bit sharper, so you get this -5 line even into parts of the southwest there, so making the snow precipitation type less marginal. It will still be marginal, it will still be mixed between rain and sleet, but slightly less so. Especially towards the evening, as the sun sets, we could get some accumulations, possibly some decent accumulations as well. This -6 should be decently enough for snowfall, in my opinion. The one issue is the dew points, which you can see here. 1 degrees across the south, this is for 4 o'clock. That may be just slightly on the wrong side. But if, as I suspect, the low is stronger, you're going to be dragging in more of the cold air from the northeast. So probably looking at a slightly less marginal, as I said, probably slightly more snow event. So that's now looking pretty interesting in my opinion. And the thing is, it's quite hard when you've got live observations telling you one thing, none of the models are suggesting it. It's quite hard to actually have a good estimate of what's going to happen. So this graphic here is a fairly rough one. It's subject to potentially some error, but I think right now this is probably what we're looking at, with a fairly decent spell of snow across the south. Some of the arome, this is the high resolution French model, the ensembles were indicating some possibly quite high-end scenarios on the extreme end of things, and I don't think we're going to reach there, but this thing here, this is certainly more developmental than I thought. The low is stronger, and you can even see the centre of the low is actually moving northeast, as I said earlier. Models had it moving due east, so potentially we're going to see this band pushing inland a lot more than we thought. Maybe this is kind of the extent we are looking at here for falling snow. It's hard to say. There are going to be challenges with dry air. If I take the sounding from the snow band, check out this big spike of green to the left. To the left. And this is dry air, so potentially we're going to have some problems with the snowfall. It will form in this layer where we've got that yellow line. That's called the dendritic growth zone. That's where our dendrites, our snowflakes, form. We're generally looking for a pretty unstable dendritic growth layer. So this is actually not the most unstable one. It's fairly stable. That's because it's going straight up like that. However, that being said, we do have these red lines here. That's indicating vertical motion. When you've got vertical motion through your dendritic growth layer, that's often a good sign. It's more turbulent. There's more snowflake creation. Another thing is you've got a saturated DGZ, or DGZ, sorry. Too used to. That's quite an American kind of meteorological term, so I'm too used to saying that. But your dendritic growth layer is saturated as well. That's a positive thing for kind of snowflake development. So we're probably expecting some decent snowflakes to form, decent snow rate to initially develop, and then they're going to probably weaken a bit because of that dry layer. But then down to the surface, you're still just about cold enough for snowfall, so you're going to get those snowflakes falling at the ground. So that's generally the current expectation. And like I said, these models have got it wrong, so there's not really much point in me showing you what they've got. I think the most accurate, in my opinion, is probably the GFS, which we're showing here. Widely kind of a dusting of snow, and then in some places significant snowfall. But even then, I believe slightly overdone, potentially. But we've got to look out for how the dry air weakens the snowfall on the northern band. Potentially significant amount, it's hard to say. If we take a sounding to the north of the dry air, you can check out what's going on here. Yeah, so there's a much more dry air to the north of that band. That's probably going to be the limiting factor to the northward extent, because even if the vertical motion, the region which was once producing vertical motion, gets to the north, it's probably going to start to weaken, precipitation will start to dry out, and that's actually what the model has here. So Like I said, we're not expecting major shifts north. It's just that, well, number one, I mean, there's going to be a shift north, obviously, as you can see here, but the areas at risk are more at risk for an actual decent snowfall. So anyway, that's about it for the forecast. Very uncertain, so there is a fairly large margin of error. It's possible that snowfall's not as good as we think. On the flip side of that, could be better, but this is going to be falling throughout the afternoon, starting across the southwest, probably through late to mid-morning, spreading into parts of the south, mid-morning to afternoon, late afternoon, and then further east into the evening. For Ireland, it's probably going to be mid-afternoon as well. I mean, the whole region is probably going to see snow mixed snow and rain through the mid-afternoon into the evening. I think the timings of the UKV are not bad. It's just the extent is bad. So kind of you can see starting around mid-morning there, and then late afternoon, early evening, and then late evening there. So that's my general thoughts for the snow risk across the south. We do have the continued risk of heavy snow showers across northern Scotland there. We'll bring an additional 5 to 10 centimetres, as you can see, continuing to pile in. But anyway, that's about it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.